What?
It's time now for My Two Favorite Librarians. Brought to you by the Copper Tree Boutique in Dale's Grand Market, located in beautiful, historic downtown Amherst.
Hi, this is My Two Favorite Librarians. I'm Denise Corey.
I'm Chantel Taylor, and today we're talking about
The classics.
classic literature.
Are we going to sound smart, do you think?
Oh, I doubt it.
Yeah, me too. What is a classic?
I don't know, Denise. Tell me, what's a classic?
Well, I was trying to find a definition, and I found one. To be generally agreed upon as a classic, works must meet some common high standards for quality, appeal, longevity, and influence. They must express artistic quality, they must stand the test of time, and have universal appeal. But really, who gets to decide? I mean, usually it's just like old white dudes writing, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
They get to decide. The nebulous they that decide that things are classics or that high-waisted pants are back, which they shouldn't be.
Why are high-waisted pants back? I feel like high-waisted pants were back and are gone again. We're just really like behind the times.
No. Everybody's high-waisted pants.
So I did an English major. My undergrad was English. So I have read a fair amount of what is deemed classics. Although the lists that include classics almost never have very much Canadian content. So, and I primarily
Well, of course, they're very
European centered.
well, and also like American would have mostly American.
Yeah. I did find a list of classic Canadian books, which I will post.
I bet you I haven't read any of those. Oh, I've read The Handmaid's Tale.
Yes, The Handmaid's Tale is on there. No, you've read some of them. The Wars by Timothy Finley was on there.
I didn't finish that book so that kid wouldn't die.
Okay. So if you don't finish the book, everyone stays
But
alive.
he's still alive.
Yes. So in that list that I found, there were 166 classics listed, and I had read 46 of them. So not even half.
What do they consider? Like, give me some that you haven't read that they consider classics.
I haven't read a lot of poetry.
Oh, yeah.
I'm not a big poetry reader. And I've only read, they have several books by Stephen Leacock listed, but I've only read Sunshine Sketches of a Little Town. I haven't read anything else by him. And
She's having to take off her glasses to read the list.
I was fussing around with my glasses so I could read something.
Trying to be subtle.
I loathe this. This getting older really sucks. So yeah, I mean, I've read quite a few.
Give me some you haven't read.
Okay. When We Are Young by Raymond Schuster. Don't even know it. Oh, it's poetry. That's why. Yeah, it's the poetry. I haven't read any of it. Home is the Stranger by Edward McCourt.
Oh, I've never. We should ask Adam if he knows any of these books.
Here's one that I haven't read that I should have read. The Nymph and the Lamp by Thomas A. Tridell. I have read some things by Thomas A. Tridell, but not that one. The Equations of Love by Ethel Wilson. I haven't read anything by Ethel Wilson.
Wow, I don't know her.
The Double Hook by Sheila Watson. I know it's a classic. I've never read it. I've read, pretty much all of the Margaret Atwood. I've read most of the Margaret Lawrence. I've read Carol Shields, but, I haven't read all of these ones.
Okay.
But I will post this list, and then people can judge me as they will.
I've probably read like maybe 3 books on that list. Is Who Has Seen the Wind on there?
Yes.
By
yes,
W.O. Mitchell.
You know
one
what?
of the worst books ever.
I never read that.
There's a 2-headed cow that meets a bad end, I think, and I've never forgotten that. I think there's something about cows in there I didn't like.
There's something about cows. There's Shoeless Joe by W.P. Kinsella, which I haven't read, but I did read Box Lunch Socials by him that I really enjoyed. So, I've read a fair amount of Canadian
You're
stuff.
well read. We get it, Denise.
But my point was there are very few Canadian books on lists of classics.
Well, probably because the Americans are producing most of the
lists.
the classic lists.
I did go on to list challenges, which I know I've mentioned before because I love going through a list and ticking things off that I've read. Is that just me?
Do you know there's posters you can get now, like of movies and books, and you scratch off when you read it? They're all like that, like gray, like scratch ticket stuff, and you create the poster as you tick off your list. I should get you one of those for Christmas.
And then I'll feel like I have to read all of them, whether I want to or not.
What's your point?
Okay. So, yeah, I went through the list challenge of classic books. They had 99 books on the list. I had read 29 of those books. That is not good.
I bet you'll fare better on my list.
Okay.
So my list is from lifehacks.org.
Oh, all right.
And I thought, okay, let's go in. So I've actually read quite a few on this one. Number 3, Harry Potter.
Oh, I've read all of the Harry Potters. More than once.
Number 16, Charlotte's Web. Number 17, The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. I was very intrigued that it had a mix of like adult and kids and new and old. The Kite Runner's on there.
I don't think I've read The Kite Runner, actually.
I have not. I think if you looked at my list, let me see what
I see that the
Slaughterhouse 5.
A long time ago. I see
Still
that
counts.
To Kill a Mockingbird is on
Number
there.
1, yeah. 30 books on this list. I think we should read Frankenstein for one of our book clubs.
I read Frankenstein in university. It was like a women's literature course. I would read it again. I bet I would have a very different perspective on it now than I did in my 20s.
I don't think I've ever read it. We should read Frankenstein.
Okay, we'll do that. Speaking of book club, well, since you've mentioned it, we have a virtual book club for my 2 favorite librarians.
It's not all classics.
It's not. This month it is Daisy Jones and the Six. That will be on September 21st. So you have 1 week if you want to join us to get the book and read it and join us. We will be doing it via Zoom. So to register, you need to email information at cumberlandpubliclibraries.ca, and then we will send you the Zoom link.
Or you can give us a call in Amherst.
But you will still need to have computer access.
You will still need to have computer access, yes.
Zoom. So if you're not familiar with Zoom, it's like a online meeting software thing.
Yeah. And you're not going to have to look at other people. You can turn your camera off.
Yes.
And probably what we'll do is we'll have everybody turn their sound and their camera off, and there's a way you can raise your hand if you want to ask a question or make a comment.
Yeah, we have not done a Zoom book club before, so this will be new.
Yeah, so we're testing to see how things go.
Yeah, so I hope it goes well. But I'm looking forward to talking about Daisy Jones and the Six with people. Chantel and I have talked about it a bit, and we have very different perspectives on this book. I know it comes as a complete shock that we would have different perspectives on anything because we're just so similar.
So, do you choose a classic every year and read it? Do you go in spurts? I know I went through a summer like years ago where I was like trying to read 2 classics every summer. Do you see them as a monolith that you have to like?
Yes.
I mean, I'm thinking completely of Les Mis that you're going
But
through.
Les Mis, so I'm at page 260. I feel like I've been there for a while.
You've been traveling though. August has been a lost month.
Yeah.
For reading.
Yeah.
Les Mis.
Yeah, because when it was in the spring, when it was chilly, that was my bedside book, so I would read a little bit of it. But it doesn't travel well. It's big. It's heavy. But a few years ago, I read Anna Karenina. And yeah, so I try and tackle a classic every once in a while. They tend to be longer and harder reads because the language is different than what we're used to and the way that they develop.
And sometimes that's fun to look at and sometimes it's not. I do love reading an annotated book Like Pride and Prejudice has an annotated version where it explains to you like a chaise and four, like what that meant. And it was like, oh, that's fascinating. So you get these little like tidbits of the society as you're reading along, as opposed to just, okay, that's just words there, but it meant something to Mrs. Bennet.
Well, and knowing how much somebody, like someone who made a certain amount each year, knowing what that's worth, because it's like, well, he makes this much a year, this many pounds a year, and it's like, well, that doesn't mean anything to me. That doesn't sound like a lot. Is that a lot? What are you Googling?
I just wanted to Google that I actually said that correctly. Yeah, I think I said it correctly. I may have put too many S's in there.
Chaise. What is a chaise and four?
It's a carriage that's, so a chaise, or I guess, is a closed carriage seating up to 3 people, and the 4 refers to the number of horses pulling the carriage. Most chaises only had 2 horses pulling it. That was more economical, and 4 was more expensive. So when Mrs. Bennet mentions it to Mr. Bennet, it means he had enough money to throw around that he had 4 horses instead of 2. I would never have known that. I never would have known what that was.
So it's like the difference between driving a Toyota and a Mercedes.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know.
Now, on the other hand, I tried to read Mrs. Dalloway by Virginia Woolf, and I could have just banged my head against the wall because that's how enjoyable I found that book. It was that stream of consciousness writing. It was like wading through soup, and I think I maybe made 3 pages, and then I was like, no, we're done here.
I read To the Lighthouse, but again, that was most of the classics that I read when I was in university because I was doing an English degree. So now I choose to read things that are easier, usually.
Your brain is so much more spongy and absorbent when you're 20 and constantly learning things. Now we're atrophied old ladies who just have to remember to get up every day.
Make it to work. No, I think a lot of people do enjoy reading classics. It's just that I would rather read something more fun. There are almost never any zombies in classic literature.
Unless you read Pride and Prejudice and zombies.
Yeah, I own that. It is not good.
I do enjoy the sword fight between Elizabeth and Lady Catherine.
I could not read that book. Pride and Prejudice and Zombies, no.
I read the whole thing. That is a big trend. People love to remake a classic.
Yes.
Whether it's the Pride and Prejudice and Zombies series or Jane Steele was a book that came out 3 or 4 years ago. It was a remaking of Jane Eyre.
But as a serial killer?
Yeah, so if Jane Eyre wasn't a plucky, positive thinking person, if she just killed everyone that got in her way, it was amazing.
Well, plus the... is it Curtis Sittenfeld's?
Yes, I was just going to say there are a plethora
Eligible. I love that book.
Pride and Prejudice redoings in different cultures, in different,
Yeah, there's a Bollywood Pride and Prejudice movie.
Yes.
And...
Well, not a movie. There's an Indian version of Pride and Prejudice by, and I don't know if I'm pronouncing her name, Sonali Dev, who did The Bollywood Bride. And her Pride and Prejudice redo is called Pride, Prejudice, and Other Flavors. And it just came out, I feel 2008 or 2009. So people love to redo the classics. We see it in...
People love to redo Pride and Prejudice.
They do. I mean, it's a bit of a...
You don't usually see people redoing A Tale of Two Cities. Hey, why don't you talk about Bleak House?
I didn't read Bleak House. It wasn't Bleak House. That was Beth's book club.
Oh.
No, I was Ulysses.
You didn't read Ulysses either.
I never read one word of Ulysses because I knew they would hate it. One of my book club people came in the door and yelled at me for letting them pick that book.
Did you even pick the book up?
No. God, no. Why would I bother? One person got through 13 pages and one person read a completely different book. They were like, oh, I wasn't reading that. I read one of his short stories.
Okay. Yeah. And James Joyce also writes in that stream of consciousness style, which you
I don't
loathe.
like.
Yeah. I don't understand why that was such a popular style for a while, because to me...
It could have been something very new at the time and interesting. I mean, you have to think at that time things were actually new as opposed to just retreads.
But for me, the stream of consciousness is just laziness. It's like you're not going back and developing a plot line. I shouldn't say that. You know, it's not like I've published books. I'm not James Joyce or Virginia Woolf.
Yeah, Denise.
I have no writing ability.
So do you have a favorite classic?
I mean, that's hard. I don't even have a favorite book because that changes all the time.
Do you have a few favorite classics? Like, do you think Les Mis is going to make it into a book that you'd be like, oh my gosh, you should read this book?
No. I'm happy to be reading Les Mis, but it's not a book that I'm probably going to recommend to a lot of people. I do like many classics. I did enjoy reading A Tale of Two Cities. I do like Pride and Prejudice, well, primarily movies with Colin Firth. I did like To Kill a Mockingbird, although I find that reading it in your teens and then rereading it as an adult really changes it.
Well, and also reading it through the lens of Black Lives Matters completely changes it as well.
And then reading it through the lens of Go Set a Watchman, which I have not read because I know it's just going to ruin it for me because it's just...
I've heard a lot of people like that better.
Really?
Yeah.
It sounds terrible to me.
Well, because it's perhaps a more accurate depiction of Atticus.
Yeah. I don't want the accurate depiction. I want the nice one, which is probably...
Just a fairy tale.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. It's a fairy tale. Vanity Fair was nice. It was fun. It was interesting. She was a very conniving character, so it was interesting to read. No?
I enjoyed the Bell Jar.
Oh, the Bell Jar. That was so sad. That was very depressing.
Which I was shocked that I enjoyed the Bell Jar.
Well, and when you read that, when you're reflecting on the fact that she did actually take her life, and then you're reading this fictional account of her like trying to take her life, it is very difficult.
I'm currently reading a classic that I liked, or I'm rereading it, which is In Cold Blood. We talked about it a couple of weeks ago, and I was like, I'm going to reread that book.
Yeah, so, and then what is a classic? So that's a classic of true crime fiction. Would you consider that a classic or just a classic of true crime?
I would consider it a classic because I think, again, it was kind of the first of its kind. It was a book that really captured a moment and catapulted this writer into infamy.
Yes.
And I think it was popular enough that a lot of different people who wouldn't necessarily have picked up that book pick it up because, Truman Capote wrote that book.
Right.
So I would consider it a classic.
Do you like the writing style?
I do, yes. I'm not enjoying, because I'm listening to it, and I'm not necessarily enjoying listening to it. And I don't know if it's just...
Is it the narrator, or is it just that the style doesn't translate well into audio?
It might be that the style doesn't translate well, because, again, there's a lot of description, because I don't know much about Truman Capote. I know he ended up in, like, New York and California, but did he grow up in the South? Would he be familiar with I don't know much about Truman Capote.
I think he was besties with Harper Lee.
Oh, that's right, yeah. That's true, because he's very descriptive of like what people are wearing and what the town looks like, and living in that kind of, I mean, now granted, I'm not in the middle United States, but living on a farm, it's like, it's like when Stephen King went on for 10 pages about fall. I don't need 10 pages of description of fall. You've lost me now.
Would you consider Stephen King a classic writer?
I would, yeah.
That is an interesting perspective.
Again, somebody who has captured a wide audience.
But he's
someone
not
who is
necessarily an author whom they would teach in a regular university course.
But why not? Like, maybe there has to be, if there's like a Beatles class, has to be
I'm sure that there are classes that touch on Stephen King, but they're
why is university
rare enough.
Why is university the line of a classic? He's somebody that's perforated into culture. He's someone that
Perforated into culture. That sounds gross.
into popular culture. He's had movies made. He's a television series. And I think as weird as people think he is, there are I bet a lot of people went and read The Green Mile because that movie was such a big hit and it's so sort of not Stephen King-ish at the same time being a Stephen King.
Yeah.
He has some scary stuff. He's very, oh God, the words just left now I've got proliferated. Prolific. He's very prolific. That's the word I want. He's someone that I think you could go into almost any household and say Stephen King and they would know who you're talking about. So I would consider some of his stuff classic. Yes.
So right now you are reading a classic.
Yeah. In Cold Blood, yes. Truman Capote.
Yes. I guess right now I am reading a classic, Les Mis. I feel like I might be reading that well into 2022.
That's okay.
It's going to take me forever.
We're running long, so we need to.
Okay. So, currently open. Advocate Library is offering grab and go. Forefathers Library is open reduced hours. Oxford has a satellite location where you can just pick up holds. There is no collection there, but you can place holds and pick them up in Oxford. Parsboro is open Fridays and Saturdays. Pugwash is offering grab and go. Spring Hill is open Wednesdays and Thursdays. And of course, we are still offering borrow by mail to anyone who cannot make it into the library for whatever reason. We will mail you books, DVDs, jigsaw puzzles, whatever you need.
Classics.
Stephen King, Truman Capote. Yes, we will send them to you. Absolutely free of charge service for you. And do you want to talk about CART?
CART is happening. It's starting in October. CART, which is more famous than Denise, stands for Children and Adults Reading Together. We normally do it branch by branch for chunks of 8 weeks. We're doing it virtually this year. It'll run from October to probably the end of February. You still need to register and we'll provide you with the supplies to participate in the videos. You can email us, give us a call, drop into your local branch and we'll sign you up. Information at cumberlandpubliclibraries.ca or the Amherst branch, 902-667-2549.
Next week, we're going to talk about books published in 2020.
Oh.
Yeah, see, you didn't know that, did you?
No, I didn't know that. And I'm thinking all the books that I was waiting for have been pushed off.
Well, then you're going to have to find something. All right, we'll talk to you next week.
My two favorite librarians. Brought to you by the Copper Tree Boutique in Dales Grand Market, located in beautiful, historic downtown Amherst.